So I've gone 30 days without using my credit cards, okay? And you're gonna be surprised by what actually happened so far. And by the way, I have all the information here. You will see my credit score and you will see everything I'm talking about because I like to be able to show people everything. This way they can actually see what I'm saying is what I'm saying, okay? So in reality, it's been 30 days. My credit score actually went down. I spent money, but I didn't get back any cash back. So how much did I actually lose out? But the most interesting thing is that I actually saved more money by not using any credit cards whatsoever. So as always, guys, do me a favor and smash the like button on top, but also subscribe and hit the bell so you get notified. Now you might be wondering, Tommy, by how much did your credit score actually went down? It was a whopping 38 points. I stopped using it on February. It is March now, and my new credit score is around 776, as you can actually see right there. But it actually used to be not that long ago in February, it was about 812, as you can actually see right there. Or I'm hoping you're actually able to see it on the camera, okay? But it actually went down by a lot. Now you might be asking me, Tommy, why aren't you worried? Like, why are you kind of smiling in a way? Because in reality, I realized that I don't need to have a credit score. If I'm being 100% transparent, I didn't just stop using my credit cards. I actually closed down all of my credit line accounts, okay? So in reality, I have no more credit cards. I closed down like 5 cards, including Discover, Capital One, and also like a Synchrony Bank one with the Amazon, the Mattress Firm company, and I had like another one, I think it was like the Barclaycard card, and I closed down every single one of them. So I don't have any credit cards anymore. And what's been happening is obviously my credit score has gone down. And you might be asking me, Tommy, doesn't that make you worried? In reality, I realized that first, the only reason I was so worried about my credit score going down or maintaining it were for reasons that were actually not valid. You know, for a very long time, I used, and I was like basically the inventor of the one bill method, basically saying, hey, if you have credit cards but you don't want the debt, just put one small bill on it and pay it off in full every single month and don't worry about it. But that's a very hard thing to do because every now and then, for example, a day like today, I was on Etsy and I was about to buy something, okay? And then I realized that in the money I put aside for spending, I just didn't have enough money in there. So I was like, well, I can't buy this until until I get paid. And that's more than fine. But I used to say, well, you know what? I'm gonna get paid anyways. Let me just use this credit card, use it, and then pay it off at the end of the month, and then pay it off in full, okay? It gave me an excuse to spend money I didn't have at the moment for that reason, and that's one of the main reasons I stopped using credit cards. But overall, I realized that when it came to buying a car, I could just buy a car in cash. Now that forces you to be a saver. It forces you to be more patient. It might even force you to buy a car that you don't like, but you can't afford at that very moment. I also realized that when it comes to buying a house, I don't need, for example, a credit card. And also to rent an apartment, I don't need it. So, for example, not credit cards, but a credit score overall. And here's why. If I pay cash for a car, there's no credit score involved. If I'm trying to get an apartment and I have, for example, proof and evidence of my pay stubs and everything like that, I don't need, for example, a credit score for that. Most landlords are going to be just fine. If I'm going to buy a house, I go to the bank, show them my pay stubs, my bill history of paying my light bill and every bill on time or whatever, my phone bill, they're going to be just fine with that information. And they're going to give me, for example, an appropriate loan based on that information. You know, one of the most dangerous things is having a bad credit score because that shows evidence that you're not good with money, but having no credit score or a low credit score, being brand new to credit, it really doesn't affect you that much if you have everything else you actually need. So I'm not worried about my credit score going down for those main reasons. Now, number two is this month I spent about $1,500. Okay, that's about $500 more than I used to spend back in the days. But in reality, it's just because basically I raised up the amount of money I want to spend. But again, guys, okay, the majority of my money, like about like 90 to 80% of it, I basically just spend it on savings, okay? Not really spending, but it's basically like savings for investments. So the money I give myself to go ahead and basically spend is like $1,000 for my normal expenses and like $500 for fun. That's what I basically spend. The rest of my money is basically invested and basically just saved. This is the way I operate, okay? So this month, you know, with all the spend that I actually had, I basically missed out on 1% cash back, and that's about $15. Now, Now, I did find myself basically spending less money because for a while now, I was using cash sometimes, and I was also using a debit card sometimes. And I found myself every time I was gonna buy something and pay cash for it, I would think about it, and I would say, "Hey, this is a lot of money. Like, look at this cash leaving my fingers." Or I'm gonna use a debit card. I'm like, "Hey, I only have this much money inside of that debit card. Maybe I don't need this. Maybe I can just like not do that right now." So I found myself experimenting with the pain receptors in my brain whenever you actually use cash or debit instead of, for example, credit. When, for example, when I was using credit cards, for example, you say, "Hey, I'm gonna buy this, I'm gonna buy that." And I have this money here available because you do have that trick factor, and most people would admit this, some people don't. But whenever you see like a credit limit of like $15,000 or $7,000 or even $1,000, you kind of associate that money as being yours, but it's not yours. It's the bank's money, and you're borrowing that money, and there is a fee for that. And you might think the fee is just the interest. No, the fee is also you buying something that you should not be able to buy yet because you're assuming that that money is actually yours. So there's like a double fee in a sense. If you get charged interest, bad. But if you also spend money you shouldn't have spent in the first place, that's also double bad. So I found myself about to get paid in about 3 to 4 days or so, and I find myself with like literally like $200 left, and I'm like, that's pretty decent. So that's actually a pretty good thing. And I did not touch my savings whatsoever, did not transfer any money over, and I'm very proud because of that. Okay, now number three is I've actually went ahead and managed to save more money. And the simple answer is because I don't have the option of going into debt anymore. So whatever the money I gave myself available to spend, that's the money I'm spending. Now, a very good tactic I basically used is I separated my money between spending money, fun money, and savings. So my savings is in a separate account somewhere in Discover. Now, my other money is like in SoFi, right? Like for normal spending. And my fun budget is usually between SoFi and also like cash. And that's basically how I spend it, okay? But to transfer money to one place, that makes me think about it twice and say, hey, you're spending money extra. You should not be spending in the first place. So maybe just pause and maybe don't do that in the first place, okay? So it's actually pretty awesome. And, it might feel like I'm missing out on the credit score factor, the cashback factor. What I find myself is that I'm not really worried about those things anymore because they're not really valid reasons to actually go ahead and use them in the first place. But I do feel myself being less stressed out, and also feel myself spending less money overall, and also feel myself just saying, hey, let's plan this out how I'm actually going to be able to do this, because if the budget is this, and that's the budget because it's all the money available, then we got to figure out exactly how to make this work instead of saying we're just going to use this credit card and just call it a day. Okay? Now, in closing, guys, I do want to say one last thing. A lot of people that watch these videos are people that are either using credit cards or people that are trying to pay off credit cards. So my advice is this, okay? If you find yourself that basically you have credit card debt and you're trying to pay it off, I recommend using the avalanche method. That basically means you organize your debts from the highest interest rate to the lowest interest rate. You pay the minimum payment on all of them, and you pay the extra money towards the card with the highest interest rate. This way you save more money. And I also recommend you actually look into a balance transfer credit card. These are credit cards that allow you to basically transfer balance from one card to that card and give you, for example, 21 months or 12 months to pay that off interest free. But don't use it to transfer your balance, because in reality, most people will transfer the money over, have extra money here, spend it. Now you got to double that, okay? You don't want to do that. So I would use that offer to call my credit card companies and basically say, hey, I have an offer to transfer the balance, to pay less interest. What are you offering me to actually lower this interest rate? This way you save more money on interest as you're trying to pay off this debt. That is my advice. And once you're done with the debt, close it off, because one of the best things possible is basically when you don't have access to something, there is no way to get it or to get back in debt. That's a powerful thing. I found myself not using my credit card before, like on a monthly basis, like every single time, but I found myself using my credit cards during like kind of weird ways, okay, where basically if I needed to buy something and I didn't have the cash on me, just use a credit card. But now I find myself saying, like, if I just need to buy something, need, that's a very powerful word, which usually is misconcepted into just things you actually want, and I can't buy it because I don't have the cash on hand. I'm like, okay, just can't buy it, gotta wait, okay? It makes you do that, okay? So it makes you more prevalent and just more known and aware of your money, where it is, and what your goals are. That is it for this video. Thanks for watching. As always, like, subscribe, hit the bell so you're notified. I hope you liked it. Comment down below credits so I know you made it all the way to the end of the video. Up here is another video. Over here is my face. No scrub. As always, long-term team officially out.